What if Toy Story 2 was a direct-to-video release like the Aladdin sequel, The Return of Jafar? Well, it almost was, and it would have been radically different. Señorita Cactus would have been the third member of Woody's Roundup gang instead of Jessie the cowgirl. Buzz would have faced off against a sleek, chrome-plated Ultra Buzz Lightyear 2000 instead of a carbon copy with a utility belt, and instead of the now iconic airport finale, the film would have ended with a high-speed car chase similar to the original. So how did we go from that to the theatrical classic we all know today? To find out, let's dive in and take a look at the original plans for Toy Story 2. After the success of The Return of Jafar, which earned an estimated $300 million on home video, Disney saw a lucrative new market, direct-to-video sequels. The film had been produced on a fraction of Aladdin's budget and in far less time, yet it proved immensely profitable. This led Disney to make low-cost sequels a core part of their strategy, even if the quality often paled in comparison to the theatrical originals. At the time, Pixar was still an independent studio, with Disney acting as their distributor and funding partner. When Pixar pitched an idea for a Toy Story sequel, Disney pushed them to follow their new model, pressuring the team to develop the film as a direct-to-video release. As a result, Toy Story director John Lasseter chose to step back and use the sequel as an opportunity to develop new directing talent. He promoted rising animator Ash Brannon, who had served as an animation director on the first film, to helm the project. However, Pixar's core animation team was hard at work on A Bug's Life. Meanwhile, the company's interactive products group had just delivered two successful CD-ROM titles, Disney's animated storybook, Toy Story, and the Toy Story Activity Center. Between the two titles, the Interactive Products Group had produced nearly as much original animation as the first Toy Story film. Recognizing their potential, Pixar CEO Steve Jobs made a bold move. He shut down the computer games division and reassigned the entire team to work on Toy Story 2, housing them in a separate building across the railroad tracks from the main studio. The story of the film came from John Lasseter's personal experience as a toy collector. Surrounded by rare and one-of-a-kind toys in his office, Lasseter often found himself nervously watching his young sons play with them, torn between preserving the toys and letting his kids enjoy them. That tension sparked the core idea behind Toy Story 2. From a toy's point of view, is it better to be preserved and admired, or to be loved and played with by a child? This being a direct-to-video sequel, the film would have had a shorter runtime and been smaller in scale. The early version of the story also featured several key differences. Notably, Jessie wasn't in the original script, whose emotional flashback became one of the film's most powerful moments, and helped set the tone for future Pixar tearjerkers like the opening of Up. Instead, her role was filled by a character named Señorita Cactus, a toy who, like Stinky Pete, disliked children and preferred to be kept on display rather than played with. Instead, it would have been Bullseye, who is able to talk in this version, who confides in Woody that he misses being played with by a child, and has made several failed escape attempts of his own. Moved by Bullseye's story, Woody decides to try escaping with him, but their plan fails. In the aftermath, Stinky Pete and Señorita Cactus begin scheming together to break Woody's spirit and convince him to stay. They even show him a collector's price guide, revealing just how valuable he is. Slowly, the pair begin to manipulate Woody, drawing him to their side, as his bond with Bullseye starts to unravel. Just like in the final film, Buzz and the gang set out to rescue Woody after he's taken by Big Al during a garage sale. As a side note, Big Al was not only inspired by Lasseter himself, but the character was actually part of a very early version of the Toy Story script before being removed. At the start of the mission, Buzz is struggling with self-doubt, questioning whether a mere toy like himself is even capable of a rescue mission. But things take a turn when the group arrives at Al's toy barn, and Buzz comes face to face with a flashier, chrome-plated version of himself, the Ultra Buzz Lightyear 2000. Just as deluded as Buzz once was, Ultra Buzz believes he's a real space ranger. Buzz tries to reason with him, but the two end up fighting as Ultra Buzz believes Buzz has been brainwashed by Zurg's agents. As they fight, they knock over an Emperor Zurg display in the process, who bursts out of his box and fires foam balls from his ion blaster. While Ultra Buzz dodges the attacks with flashy acrobatics, Buzz calmly walks through the onslaught and casually removes Zurg's batteries. The moment leaves Ultra Buzz stunned. Despite being the sleeker, cooler version, he now looks up to the original Buzz as the real deal. Humbled, he hands over his utility belt and sends Buzz off with newfound admiration. The moment restores Buzz's confidence and solidifies his role as a leader. However, absent from the script is the subplot of the two Buzzes switching places, since Ultra Buzz wasn't a carbon copy of the original here. Interestingly, the Ultra Buzz Lightyear 2000 concept eventually made its way way into the real world when Mattel released a toy version in 1999 to tie in with Toy Story 2, branding it as Techno Gear Buzz. When Buzz finally reaches Woody, he's disappointed to find that his old friend doesn't want to go home to Andy, worried that he'll eventually throw him away, arguing that'll never happen to him if he's a collectible. Still determined to bring him home, Buzz tries to snap Woody out of it, comparing his situation to being brainwashed by a cult. In a desperate move, Buzz ties Woody up with his own pull string and escapes through the skylight. Woody, unwilling to leave the Roundup gang behind, resists and fights back. Once they're up on the roof, Buzz unties Woody and tries reasoning with him, leaving the choice in Woody's hands: return to Andy or stay behind in a museum with the Roundup gang. As Woody contemplates his decision, a gust of wind blows his hat off, where it lands on a horizontal flagpole, dangling dangerously above the street. Woody scrambles to retrieve it but slips, catching himself at the very edge by grabbing onto the flagpole. He calls out to Stinky Pete and Señorita Cactus for help, but neither of them is willing to risk themselves to save a hatless Woody. It's Buzz, however, who leaps into action, pulling Woody to safety. As they climb back onto the roof, Woody reveals with a grin that he'd actually managed to catch his hat on the spur of his boot. Stinky Pete and Señorita Cactus quickly switch back to their friendly personas, but it's too late. Their true colors have been exposed. They never cared about Woody as a friend, only as a valuable collectible. As Woody and Buzz return to Al's apartment to rescue Bullseye, Al returns and packs up the Roundup gang as he leaves with them to deliver them to his buyer, the museum. Buzz and the rest of Andy's toys chase Al down and latch onto his car as he drives off. Woody opens the trunk from inside and they devise a plan. Buzz lowers Woody out of the car so he can plug the tailpipe with his hat, forcing Al to stop. As Al exits at a gas station, the toys hijack his car and drive off. Thinking he's being robbed, Al steals a Pizza Planet truck and gives chase. Woody throws collectibles out of the trunk to slow him down, while Stinky Pete and Señorita Cactus try to stop them, before Bullseye kicks them out of the car. Al slams on the brakes when he sees them land on the road, but before he can reach them, two kids on bikes scoop them up. Desperate, Al chases after the kids and gets into a scuffle trying to get the toys back. Woody, Buzz, and the rest of the toys make it back to Andy's house just in time as he returns home from camp. As he comes into his room, he finds all of his toys on his bed plus Bullseye, barely noticing Buzz's scuffed paint from rescuing Woody and Woody's charred hat. While the film was still in production, Disney was shown early story reels and some finished animation. They were unexpectedly impressed by the emotional depth and overall quality, far beyond what they expected from a direct-to-video sequel. On top of that, the economics didn't add up. Unlike Disney's usual direct-to-video sequels, which were animated by lower-cost overseas studios, Toy Story 2 was made entirely in-house at Pixar, with significantly higher production costs and salaries. These factors led Disney to request that the project be upgraded to a full theatrical release, which Pixar would agree to. However, in one of the most well-known behind-the-scenes stories from the project, the entire film was almost deleted by accident. While clearing files, an animator accidentally entered a command that began wiping the root directory of the film on Pixar servers. Within moments, key character models vanished from workstations, and 90% of the film, representing nearly 2 years of work, was gone. Even worse, the studio's backup system had quietly failed weeks earlier. Disaster was only averted thanks to technical director Galen Sussman, who had a full copy of the project on her home computer while working remotely to care for her newborn. Her personal backup saved the film, minus just a few days of lost progress, and allowed production to continue. However, what's often left out of that story is that the film would eventually be deleted again, this time on purpose. When John Lasseter returned from the press tour for A Bug's Life, he watched the latest reels for Toy Story 2 and felt it wasn't working. After informing Disney that the story needed a major overhaul, Disney pushed back, insisting there wasn't enough time to make changes before the release deadline. Still, Pixar refused to move forward with a film they didn't believe in, so Lasseter stepped in to direct, bringing back the original Toy Story brain trust, including Andrew Stanton and Pete Docter. Ash Brannon stayed on as co-director, and Lee Unkrich, fresh off A Bug's Life, joined the directing team as well. To meet Disney's tight deadline, Pixar had to complete the entire film in just 9 months, but not before scrapping nearly everything that had been done. According to the team, virtually all animation and layout work was thrown out, meaning every camera setup had to be redone from scratch. Even the lighting work that had begun was discarded, and several characters had to be rebuilt from the ground up. The film also had to be expanded to fit a feature-length runtime, and major revisions were made. Bullseye was made a silent character, with Lasseter preferring him to behave more like a loyal puppy. His backstory was then reassigned to Señorita Cactus, who was reimagined as a brand new character, Jessie the Cowgirl, suggested by Lasseter's wife Nancy. The intense workload to finish the film on time took a serious toll on the crew. Animators developed carpal tunnel syndrome and other repetitive strain injuries, with nearly a third of the team affected by the time the film was finished. Despite the chaos, the pressure, and the near catastrophes, Toy Story 2 emerged not just as a successful sequel, but as a landmark achievement in animation. What began as a modest direct-to-video follow-up transformed into a full-fledged theatrical release, and many fans and critics argue it even surpassed the original. Deeper, funnier, and more emotionally resonant, Pixar didn't just salvage the the film, they made it insanely great, echoing the very mantra Pixar CEO Steve Jobs championed for all of Apple's products. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories and unmade movies.